It could be about lifestyle choices that might be just negatively impacting the kids. Maybe in the other home, there's excessive partying going on there, or there's irresponsibility, or just maybe a lack of a moral standard or structure that we really are leading to mixed messages for the kids between the two homes. Whatever those differences might be, there's a right way to help your kids understand these kind of differences. And there's also a wrong way to handle this situation. And we want to cover both of those things today. Welcome to the Blended Family Coaching Show, where you'll discover how to move your stepfamily from just surviving to truly thriving.
Grab your headphones and listen in as we share practical, real-life strategies for building healthy bonds,
Understanding the kids' perspective,
romance and partnership,
parenting with great teamwork.
and yes, even co-parenting with a difficult ex.
We're Mike and Kim Anderson, and we believe with the right tools, every step couple can overcome the common challenges of stepfamily life.
Join us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations to discover how you can lead your family with confidence and create the future you really want.
Well, hey everyone, welcome. We are always excited to be joining you every Tuesday morning. And as we get started this morning, we want to give a quick shout out to Deborah, who recently joined us over on Patreon.
Woohoo!
We are so excited you're with us,
Yes.
Deborah. Now, if you are listening and you don't know what Patreon is, we're going to actually cover that toward the end of this episode. And we're going to share how you can support the mission of serving blended families and get some really cool gifts from us along the way as well. And as always, please don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any content. And we would really appreciate it if you would leave us a rating or a review. So that's our infomercial for the day. Let's go ahead and maybe jump into today's topic.
So in our last episode last week, we talked about the importance of building and maintaining that cooperative relationship with your parenting coalition, right? And that, of course, consists of all the adults that are involved in raising your kids. So just to review, all of these parenting relationships between the steps and the bios, all of these are important because your home and your kids will be either negatively affected by conflict between everyone, or positively impacted by the cooperation that you're able to build with your co-parenting relationship. So it's so important. And if you missed last week's episode, you might want to go back and listen to that because we shared some really great insights and tips for both bio and step parents. Who might be experiencing some difficult emotions around their parenting coalition and all these intermingling relationships. So if you're hoping to improve the cooperation between the two homes, definitely go back and listen to that episode. Now, today in this episode, we want to take a little different spin and we're going to focus on how to cope with the differences between your kids' two homes.
But we're doing that by impacting our own home.
That's right. This again is so important and we hear about this all the time because there might be different priorities in each of your kids' homes. There could also be different lifestyles being modeled. Maybe there are even some negative influences or some unhealthy examples going on in that other home, and you might have some real concerns about the messages or the attitudes your kids are picking up from that other home. And if you're looking for some ways to deal with all of that and instill good character in your kids and teach them the values that are important to you, then guess what? You're in the right place today.
That's right.
We're going to really help you out. Now, this is definitely challenging stuff, but we've got an effective strategy to share with you today that can help keep you on track with what you want to accomplish in your home and minimize anything negative that the kids might be exposed to in their other home. So to start out, we need to reiterate two critical mindsets that are going to set you up for success when you're using the strategy that we're going to share.
I love mindset stuff.
You do.
I know.
You love that word.
I kind of geek out on it.
But it's important that we have our minds set in the right place as we're doing this.
No, that was a play on words. Good job.
Now, first, remember, you cannot control what is taught or modeled in the other home or how things operate over there.
That's a hard truth.
It's so difficult. And it's actually pretty valid that you want your ex's undesirable behavior to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe that they would handle parenting things different. It's okay that you want that. But attempting to control your ex's decisions and their lifestyle, it just doesn't work.
Yep.
And attacking their behavior or their partner, the step parent in the other home, that's certainly not going to improve the cooperation between the homes. It's actually going to do some damage.
Yeah, it's just going to raise the tension and the conflict and all of that. And that's not good for the kids. And ultimately, it's not really good for us either.
No, it doesn't accomplish what you're really looking to do either. So we've got to relinquish control and focus on the message of the Serenity Prayer.
Oh, what the heck is that?
Well, some of you may not know that I had a rough time in life, made some really poor choices, and ended up in a substance abuse program in rehab for about 20 years ago now.
Yep.
And while I was
21 years
21
clean now,
years,
right?
yep.
Awesome. Good job, honey. I'm proud of you.
And while I was there, I learned something called the Serenity Prayer, and it's something that really impacted me, and it's very powerful. So I want to share it with you because it does have to do with relinquishing control. It goes like this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can change, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah, there's a lot of powerful truth in that, isn't there?
Yeah, because the truth is you really can't change the environment in the other home or how things operate over there. But you can be courageous and intentional in how you handle your home, how your home operates.
Yep.
You can consistently model the values and the character traits that you want your kids to pick up. And by the way, we're here to help you with the wisdom to know the difference.
It is hard to know the difference sometimes.
It is.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Yep. Okay. So that was one mindset, understanding that we really can't control what goes on in the other home.
Relinquish control.
So tell us about the next mindset.
The second mindset is that your children are going to be exposed to negative things in life, things that you probably don't like or approve of.
That just stinks.
It does.
Yeah, but it is true.
It's how it is. But it's simply not within your power to guard your kids from every negative influence.
Right.
Sometimes when parents are dealing with the stressful changes like that we talked about last week, or they may be struggling to accept what's going on in that other home, they could be tempted to try and shield the kids from that other home as a means of protecting them from those influences that they might not approve of. But in the end, becoming a barrier between your kids and their other parent, it's really going to cause the kids to feel some resentment and anger towards you. It ultimately backfires and it negatively impacts your relationship with the kids.
Yeah. And, it's natural for us to want to protect our kids from everything we think might be a poor influence on them. But the truth is, we're just never going to be able to do that completely.
No.
And actually, if we were to try, we may be putting them in a position where they're not learning how to become adults themselves, because someday they're going to be leaving the nest and they're going to have to deal with negative influences and choose how they're going to respond to that. So if we can help them choose now, we're better equipping them for when they become adults. We're so excited to let you know about something brand new we've created just for you.
We've realized that with so many episodes available here on the show, it might feel a bit overwhelming to find the topics that matter most to you. That's why we've created a simple tool for you to receive a personalized playlist focused on your current struggle or your biggest challenge.
That's right. It's called the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz. You'll answer just a few questions, and based on your responses, we'll email you a curated custom playlist of episodes that are specific to you.
This simple quiz will direct you to the most impactful episodes that pertain to you personally and keep you on track in your journey of discovery, learning, and growth. So, scroll all the way to the bottom of the show notes for this episode and click the link to take the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz today.
Okay, let's get back to the discussion.
So we've got to find other ways of influencing the kids while they're in our home rather than attempting to change the other home or keep the kids away from the people in that other home.
Yeah, that's right.
And the good news around this is that you can have a profound impact in your home, and you can counteract those negative traits or those unhealthy lifestyles being modeled in the other home.
Mm-hmm.
And we've discovered that the best way to do that is to be intentional and strategic in how you set out to accomplish this. But you can do it.
Awesome. Thank you, honey. Now you've got us in the right mindset. Right? That's the stuff I love.
The all-important mindset.
Yeah, the all-important mindset. So now that we're there, let's talk about what we can do in our home and really sink our teeth into a strategy, because we've discovered this really works.
It does.
And the best part is it doesn't cross the line. Here's what I mean by that. At no time does this strategy demean, badmouth, or criticize anyone in the other home, which we all know is a really toxic thing to do for our kids, right? We don't want to be badmouthing that other home, and it's tempting to do it though. Part of building a healthy parenting coalition is supporting, honoring, and even encouraging their relationship between the kids and the other home. Now, I know that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, but keep in mind the golden rule here. If you want the adults in the other home to support, honor, and encourage your relationship with the kids, then you really need to do the same thing.
So true.
Yeah. So this strategy is going to help us to do that and still really model the values and the character traits that we want our kids to pick up. Now,
and influence them.
Yeah, totally. Now, several years ago, we actually discovered this strategy in a workshop with stepfamily expert Ron Deal. And he talks about this in his book as well, called The Smart Stepfamily. And we'll link to that if anybody's interested in checking it out. Now, he calls this strategy an inoculation. And isn't it interesting that we're right in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic while we're talking about inoculations? We actually did not plan that, but it is interesting.
Here we are.
Yeah, here we are. We love this inoculation strategy because we don't even need to talk about the other home to inoculate our kids from the negative things that they might be picking up over there. We also really love this strategy because we can use it with any negative influence in our kids' life. It might not be the other home. Sometimes they have friendships that we aren't real excited about, right? Sometimes there's cultural messages that are sent that really we don't agree with, and we need to have a way to help them see the truth around that. Really, any situation where you like to tactfully influence and guide your kids, even if there are other influences in the world around them that are going against your values. That's what this is all about. Now, in medical terms, an inoculation is a controlled injection of the actual virus that you're trying to fight. And what happens is that goes into the body and it allows us to develop antibodies that will then combat that virus if we ever encounter it in the future. And so in the same way, we're going to actually be exposing our kids to some of the opposite of our values in order to help them learn our values. And we're going to tell you exactly how to do it as we go through this episode, because we want to provide guidance for our kids. And we've got to use this art of inoculation in order to help them figure this out.
It works the same way as a medical inoculation.
That's right. So let's give an example of how we can inoculate our kids while they're in our home. Let's say that one of your family values is honesty. We hear that one a lot. Now, and one of the priorities in our home is just that we want to raise kids that are trustworthy, right? You want to help them understand that value of integrity as they grow up and head out into the world. But you're concerned for your kids because your ex doesn't seem to be living a life of integrity, and you've noticed this pattern of them stretching the truth or even evading the truth and lying or covering things up. Maybe it's even gone so far as catching the kids following that kind of behavior. And maybe they've started resorting to lying themselves or avoiding responsibility when they've done something wrong. Now, this is a really valid concern.
Of course.
And there's a lot of these kinds of concerns that pop up all throughout life, right?
Right.
It could be around any unhealthy character trait. It's not just about honesty, right? It could be about lifestyle choices that might be just negatively impacting the kids. Maybe in the other home, there's excessive partying going on there, or there's irresponsibility, or just maybe a lack of a moral standard or structure that we really are leading to mixed messages for the kids between the two homes. Whatever those differences might be, there's clearly a right way to help your kids understand these kind of differences. And there's also a wrong way to handle this situation. And we want to cover both of those things today. Now, the best way that we've discovered to help our kids is by using this inoculation strategy from Ron Deal. What we want to do when we use this is to look for a tangible example or a story that we might use to just start a conversation with the kids. And then we're going to administer that inoculation against those undesirable character traits. So maybe those things are being modeled in the other home. Maybe they're being modeled in our culture. And let's just stick for a moment with this example of dishonesty.
It's a good one.
You could inoculate a child against dishonesty and really expand their understanding of the importance of integrity by using some practical examples that are in their world to teach about this particular character trait. So here's what you're looking for. You want to look for age-appropriate things like movies or TV shows where someone uses deception for their own personal gain and then in the process ends up hurting somebody else.
So they suffer a consequence because of their choice.
Or even somebody else suffers a consequence because of that lie.
Yeah.
So you can use examples of things like historical figures or celebrities or athletes or anything in the news where someone's caught in a lie and it destroyed their reputation, their marriage, their career, or it significantly hurt someone else.
Some kind of loss.
And once the kids have been exposed to that story, that negative character trait, you are set up to initiate this conversation that centers around the very issue that you're inoculating them against. Now, if you want to supercharge this, and it could be really effective if you share a personal story from your past.
Yeah, we do that all the time.
Yeah, we've really, unfortunately, we have a lot of really terrible choices to share about
from our past. But our kids love to hear about it.
They do. It helps us become real to them as well. But maybe there was a time in your past where you lied to achieve or something that you wanted or avoid something. And that whole lie backfired on you. You can really focus on the emotions that you felt. Maybe you were embarrassed or frustrated that you weren't trusted anymore. Maybe you were sad because you lost a friend. Or maybe you need to share a story about when someone lied to you and really broke your trust. Now, if that was the ex, be careful with that one. Don't share that story.
like something from when you were a kid.
Yeah. Especially if you can share a story that relates to the stage of life they're in,
exactly.
Right? The grade they were in or the age they were at. But you're focusing on the emotions and the impact of the deception, both on the person who told the lie and the person who was being lied to. And when you use these examples to teach, the goal is that we want to help the kids see the negative consequences behind that dishonesty or whatever the behavior is, and then give them a positive picture of a character trait that you want them to pick up. Like how good it feels when someone really trusts you, or the value of being a person of high integrity. And again, using your personal stories or examples in movies or the media, that really helps the kids begin to complete this picture. It kind of puts flesh on the bones of the value, and it helps them to really catch, well, what does that character trait or value look like that you're trying to teach them? And why you feel it's so important as well.
Yeah, that's an important part.
So you're kind of injecting them, you're inoculating them with this undesired trait through that story or example and actually calling it out while you help them discover both the negative and the positive aspects of what's going on. All right. So that's one example. Let's try a different example. Let's say you want to teach your kids the value of hard work and accomplishment. You want them to stick with things. Oh, you like that one?
Yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah. I thought you would.
you want to help them learn that, when you stick with things and you do your best, you can actually overcome challenges.
Yeah.
But maybe in the other home, the kids just aren't encouraged in that same way. Maybe it's been okay for them to quit the team mid-season just because they don't really like going to practice. Or maybe they've been given the approval to drop a class if it's just a little challenging, rather than, getting some extra help, maybe a tutor, and really putting in the effort to learn and get through the class. Yeah. All right. So if we want to inoculate against that, here's what a conversation might look like, and to help them really process the messages that are coming from that other home or somewhere in that culture. Again, we're going to use a real life example every chance we get.
Yeah, be looking for real life examples.
Yeah. So let's say you've been watching the Olympics with your kids. We like to watch the Olympics sometimes, right? This is a great opportunity to start an inoculation conversation around this kind of value.
It could be any sporting event too.
Yeah, totally. One of the great things about the Olympics is they do the backstory on people. They talk about their struggles, about the athletes,
how long they've been training,
all of that. So as you're watching and you start hearing those stories, those real life stories about those people, just saying something like, "Hey kids, what do you think about that athlete who just won the medal in whatever, downhill skiing or whatever it is? Isn't it awesome that they were able to reach that goal of competing in the Olympics? How do you think that made them feel?" And the kids might say, "Well, gosh, it's got to feel really good standing up there getting a medal and all of that,"
awesome.
Right? Then as soon as they identify that feels good, you just move on. It probably took a lot of hard work and perseverance to achieve that goal. Did you hear that backstory and notice how much training that they did? How many years of work they've put in? That takes a lot of hard work and dedication. What do you think about that? And then just listen to the kids. Let them continue their own thoughts around, yeah, you know what? That's right. They did have to work really hard.
Or maybe something they had to overcome. Maybe they had an injury along the way and they had to do, physical therapy to get back on track. And
Now, here's where the real piece of the inoculation comes in. Maybe after you've had that part of conversation, you've teed it up, you say, some people think it's okay to give up when things are hard, and they don't see the value in perseverance and working hard to achieve a goal in life. And even though it's challenging sometimes, I've always tried to do my best to work hard, even when I've had to face big challenges. And I know how great it feels to stick with something and really reach a goal in life. So that can lead to all kinds of discussions about the value of hard work and perseverance and accomplishment and all that kind of stuff. You might ask the kids to recall a time when they had to work hard to achieve something, or how good it felt to push through a challenge and experience a big win. And if your kids can't think of anything in the moment, then maybe you can recall a time or remember watching them work hard to achieve something that took a little bit of extra effort, right? Even if it's something small. And then you could ask them how it felt to work hard and accomplish something that they might not have experienced if they had just given up. Now, you could also share one of your own personal experiences, maybe about a goal you didn't achieve because you gave up and how you've always regretted it. I know I have some of those. Or the opposite, maybe achieving something that you accomplished and how good it felt, right? But you're focused on sharing the emotions and the impact rather than just focusing on the story itself.
Right.
We're really trying to get down to the value. I would be digging into whatever example we can use that is in stories or books or TV shows, movies, heroes that they really like. Little boys love superheroes a lot. Well, we know lots of little girls that love superheroes too. Maybe people that and admire, people that are in your social circle. Musicians, entrepreneurs, scholars, artists. There's all kinds of examples that might help you illustrate exactly what's going on. And now you're inoculating them against that negative influence that you see coming from the other home.
The key to the strategy of inoculation is to remain neutral at all times.
Yes. Help us to understand the power and the strategy behind this inoculation. Like, what is it really doing?
Yeah, because it goes beyond just the conversation, right? You're planting seeds. That's what you're really doing. However, the inoculation never directly refers to the other home or the other parent.
That's part of the beauty of it.
It is. It's simply a focus on the value or the character trait that you're hoping to develop in your kids, regardless of what the other home is doing. So using examples of other people or the term some people, this is the appropriate way to inoculate.
Exactly. Those are key terms, aren't they?
Yeah.
And just a little caveat on that. It's not, well, some people think, right? Like that. It's, some people think that, and there's a real power behind how you say the words. Right?
Other people might think it's okay to lie to get away with something, but lying just isn't the right thing to do. And lies usually backfire.
Yeah.
Because when you get caught, people won't trust you.
Yeah.
You're just stating the truth, and you're starting out with other people or some people. Mm-hmm. Now, as your kids get older and they become more and more aware, they'll most likely know exactly who you're talking about.
Wait, who are we talking about again?
that other home.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's okay, because they're actually discovering these things for themselves. And they're making their own associations. But always remain neutral and make sure that the kids don't hear you making associations with that other home.
That's right.
As you're engaging in these inoculation conversations with them. So what you're focusing on with this strategy is giving your kids a really clear picture of those actual differences without targeting the other home.
Yes.
That's the goal here. And it's really important that we maintain our self-control and we resist the urge to point out what's wrong with that other home or that other parent. Don't ever say to your kids, your dad's a liar, which is a really bad, and I don't want you to become a liar like he is because it's so wrong.
Yeah, that's not an inoculation.
No. You know what? Sometimes we think this approach seems okay or seems like a good idea because we're simply telling our kids the truth about what's going on, about that other parent. But this can be so damaging to our kids because a lot of kids will just naturally associate themselves with their parent. So if they're being told that that parent is bad, they can start to label themselves as also being bad. And this can be really confusing for kids, and it can lead to some self-esteem issues.
Yeah.
So it's just not a good approach. This approach can also pull on a child's loyalties between you and that other parent and increase this tension that they're already having to deal with by switching between two homes. So don't add on to that. And when you badmouth the other parent, even if it's truth-telling, you're putting the child in a position to choose and evaluate a parent's character. And what they really need is to be freed up to simply love both parents.
Right.
Rather than feeling like they're forced to choose between their parents. This really is a burden. Kids aren't ready to carry this. They're not mature enough, and they shouldn't be put in that position. Even when your child is asking for the truth about something, be very careful what you share and how you portray the other parent or your ex. Keep in mind, as kids grow and as they mature, their perspectives will naturally expand.
Right.
Kids are really observant. They're smart. They see and understand a lot more than we give them credit for, actually.
Yeah.
Your kids don't need you to point out your ex's character flaws. They will eventually figure those things out on their own. And incidentally, they're also going to figure out your character flaws.
Yikes.
That's a sobering thought, right?
That's true.
But allowing your kids to understand the truth gradually and on their own is really the healthiest ways for a kid to learn the truth about their parents, not by attempting to force feed this kind of information to them.
That's right. We all own truth more when we discover it for ourselves.
We can internalize it. So as kids mature, they're able to pick up their own bits of truth and their own bits of confirmation of the truth along the way. And it's so powerful and healthy for them as they start to come to grips with who their parents are and as they start to decide which character traits they want to emulate in their own lives, right? Because they will have to make those choices. Now, if and when your child comes to you and they're upset about something that's happened in that other home,
and it probably will happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
You need to be really careful about how you handle this.
I remember Annika doing that with you sometimes, huh?
Yeah. One time I remember she came to me and she said, Daddy makes promises, but then he doesn't ever do them. Yeah, and she was really young at that point, and she was already starting to see his character flaw there. I haven't handled things perfectly on our journey, but in that moment, I actually
did pretty well
I
that
did
time,
handle it well. Yeah, I mean, I could have said, well, yeah, he did that to me too, but I didn't go there. I didn't badmouth. Instead, I really stayed focused on her experience and helped her to process through it. And that's really where we want to go. You don't need to add to their emotions. You don't need to take advantage of their new insight. Just continue to allow them to uncover the truth and then emotionally coach them when they're hurting or when they're confused by what they've experienced in that other home.
Yeah. Give us a little tiny example of how you might do that.
Well, you might give your child some empathy. I'm really sorry that happened to you, honey. But then keep the conversation focused on the child's emotions.
Yeah.
How did you feel when that happened?
Yeah. See how simple that is?
Yeah.
Boy, I'm really sorry that happened. And tell me a little bit about how that made you feel.
Let them talk. What you don't want to do is make the conversation about you or even about that other parent. Keep it focused on the child. Now, if it's appropriate, you can help them to explore maybe a few practical ways that they can respectfully respond in that other home if that situation happens again in the future, if they need to take care of themselves. And if you want to dive a little deeper into how you can handle this, check out our episode number 7, where we talk about the 5 steps you can take to help your kids process when they're feeling hurt by their other parent when they're hurting. And we'll link that in the show notes. That's a really great episode on emotion coaching your kids. And by the way, this goes for the step parent in that other home too. I know you don't want to hear that. But even if you believe that step parent is a negative influence on your kids or put your kids in some kind of emotionally difficult situation, we had to deal with that as well. Refrain from bad mouthing.
That's right.
Stay the course with the emotion coaching and helping your child work through their challenges, but don't cross the line here.
Don't badmouth that other home or anybody in that other home.
Again, that can trigger loyalty binds. That can bring up all kinds of other things for your kids. So here's the thing. This stuff is not easy, because we're doing all of this inoculating without even mentioning what's happening in the other home.
It takes a lot of thought and a lot of energy to figure this out.
But we need to stay in that neutral zone if we want the inoculation to really take root and to work. The minute we cross the line and make the conversation about the people in the other home, then the kids' focus will often change. Then they're going to go down a different road. A loyalty bind might get triggered for them. They might start focusing on how they will defend the other parent.
That's right. They'll jump to their defense.
The parental allegiance. Or maybe your child could become angry with you for criticizing that other home. That can happen too. Or like we mentioned before, kids could begin to associate themselves with that negative character trait of the other parent and start to feel bad about themselves.
There's just too much risk in pointing toward the other home. And the risk is mitigated dramatically if we can just keep a neutral standpoint and use that other people, some people, the culture says, whatever it is you're inoculating against, the neutrality mitigates risk.
You're also watering down your inoculation because now the kid's focus is redirected somewhere else where you don't want them to be. So keep the inoculation conversations focused on that teaching moment. And remember to use the term some people or other people and give your kids clear and tangible examples of the character traits that you want them to learn. And remember to talk about why these traits are important to you.
Now, unfortunately, we've got to also mention that there are some situations where children are actually in a dangerous situation in the other home, and you do need to take action depending on what's going on. That would be considered an extreme circumstance. And everything we've been talking about today, we're not really talking about those extreme circumstances. There's also something that happens out there that is all too common, unfortunately, in our world that's called parental alienation. And the rules change a little bit when there's a clear case of parental alienation. But what I would say about that is if you've heard that term or you've done any research on that, I would really recommend that you don't try to self-diagnose that. I would try to reach out to a counselor or a coach or even in like a guardian ad litem or somebody you might know as a mediator, somebody who has some experience there, and make sure your case really is parental alienation. But those things, those extreme situations are not really what we're talking about today.
We're talking more about common differences.
These are just those common things where it's a frustration and it's an irritation and it's a worry that, gee, my kid is going to start acting in that way that my ex does, and I don't want that to happen. We're also not talking about dealing with the frustration of just differing rules and expectations in each home. We're really focused on values, not necessarily rules. But we do talk about differing rules in episode 20. So you might go check that out. It's called 4 Big Myths Around Parenting When an Ex Has Different Rules. So there's a differentiation there.
We'll put a link to that too.
Yeah, this is all about values, character traits, habits, and life choices that are just different between the two homes. And we're hoping to influence our kids more toward the character traits that we see as being really important for their future.
Yeah, and we're trying to prevent our kids from picking up unhealthy behaviors that are being modeled in that other home.
Exactly. All right, so that's the big inoculation strategy that you can use for all kinds of things as you teach and you guide your kids while they're in your home. And you're getting to counteract that undesirable habit or trait or values that are coming from the other home, or that might be coming from friends or school or culture, or any of that stuff. But we want to say that using this strategy is certainly going to give your kids something to think about as they compare the differences between their two homes. But there's no guarantees with kids. At some point along the journey, every one of our kids is going to have to make their own choices and decide which home, which value they're going to emulate. What are they going to internalize? What are they going to prioritize? What character traits are they going to embrace or reject? Those eventually are their choices and not ours. And while inoculating is a really powerful tool to help the kids see things and make better choices, ultimately it's still their choice. Now, unfortunately, most kids are kind of like water rolling downhill, right? They're taking the easiest route. The reality is some kids are going to try out those negative examples, those negative character traits that they see in the other home. And you might have to endure some tough years of watching a child follow in unhealthy footsteps from the other home. We've had that exact experience. Annika has tried out some really challenging habits in life that we've had to put strong boundaries around. And she's had to learn tough lessons. And man, watching your kids learn tough lessons is so hard.
It really is.
But it happens with many of us, right? But here's the thing. That doesn't mean that we failed as a parent. It also doesn't mean that we stop making efforts to inoculate, to give them clarity along the way.
Even if they're making poor choices.
That's right.
Stay at it.
Even our kids who are in their late teens or even in their adult years, we can still use this inoculation strategy to help them to see the truth about some character traits and values and life skills that we really want to teach them. Maybe if they lost a good friend because they were dishonest, we can still use that same, whenever things come up. We can use the inoculation strategy. Maybe they're stuck in a job they dislike because they just didn't work hard enough to get through college or build their career or whatever it might be. Those are moments we can still help them to pivot and start making better life choices and help them develop good character and strong values, even as they're continuing
we want to do that adulthood. Gently, for sure.
Absolutely.
With lots of grace.
Yeah. And often they're going to learn when the other home eventually falters. Right? When that easy route ends somewhere that they really didn't want to go. Older kids, the more they compare the parental influences and decide who they want to become, then the more opportunity we have to continue to inoculate them. So don't lose hope. Really look for opportunity to inoculate again, even into late teens and early adulthood. Now, I know this can be a really tough message for some of us too, who only have a limited time with our kids. If I only have, a couple weekends a month, I might be thinking, well, gosh, how am I ever really going to influence them? And it doesn't feel like I have a whole lot of influential power. But the truth is, usually when it comes to time, it's more about quality than it is about quantity. And I experienced that when I was growing up. I lived with my dad and stepmom, and we had a really difficult home. And they modeled some things that later in life, I just realized I don't want to model those things. On the other hand, about one weekend a month, I got to spend time with my grandparents from my bio mom's side. And they really instilled some qualities in me and some, they kind of did this inoculation and they
very
modeled
different.
positive things. And as I entered into adulthood, I did spend some of those years comparing and going, do I want to do what my dad and stepmom did, or do I want to follow what maybe Nana and Papa showed me when I was in their home for just a tiny amount of time? So if you're believing that, well, gosh, I don't have enough time to influence them, I want you to know that's just not true. Yeah. Don't allow yourself to fall victim to giving up simply because your time is limited. So this is a really powerful tool you can continue to use.
Yeah. And Mike said that we struggled when Annika started making some poor choices and emulating the other home.
Yeah.
And that was really difficult. And we also experienced parental alienation. So we had very little time to inoculate or influence her. I think at one point we had her like 11% of the time. And it just felt so frustrating. But we did keep at it. And she did go through a period of time where she was making really poor choices. And we had the opportunity to really support her as she started to realize that she wanted something different for her own life, something better than what had been modeled in that other home. When she was a young adult, she started to see this, and she did start to pivot. She is pivoting, and she's currently making a lot better choices for herself. She's embracing more and more of the values and the character traits that we've done our best to model in our home and guide her towards. And, we've noticed that those inoculation conversations that we had with her over the years, they're still in there.
That's right. She even repeats some of them back to us. She's like, I've discovered, that honesty is really important or something like that. And we're like, we've been saying that for years, right?
So if sometimes it feels like it goes in one ear and out the other, or like that other home has more power over this than you do. But keep at it. We want to encourage you. Don't give up. You have a tremendous amount of influence on your kids, whether you think you do or not. You really do. So don't give up.
All right. Now, one of the things that can be a bit of a roadblock for step couples to consistently use this inoculation strategy is when they're not both on the same page about their home's values.
Yeah, in their own home.
Yeah, and that's been a struggle for Kim and I over the years sometimes. And we've noticed that when we both fully understand and agree on a value, then we become a great team at delivering inoculations.
And in modeling it, of course.
Yeah. But when we're not on the same page, it makes all of this really challenging.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why we developed a tool that helps couples make sure they're on the same page in delivering these inoculations as a team. And we've been giving that away as a gift to the members of our Patreon community. Remember, we thanked Deborah at the beginning of this episode, who's our newest member of the Patreon community. Thanks so much for joining us, Deborah, and welcome. We're so excited you're with us. Now, when you join the Patreon community at a rate of $10 a month or higher, then as a thank you gift, we actually give you full access to our online workshop called Step Families That Make It, which is a simple and really kind of fun way to make sure that you're working as a team around those family values. And it just supercharges your ability to implement these inoculations in a really powerful way.
It also helps to get the whole family on the same page around what your values are in your home and what the environment in your home is and the relationships and all of that.
Yeah. Plus, we're working on continuing to bring bonus content inside the Patreon community that's only for members. And in fact, we've got a special new audio bonus episode that we're just releasing today inside the community that's actually going to cover how to handle those milestone moments that are in our kids' lives. And that can be really tricky in a blended family. So we've got some insights and some tips there for both bio parents and step parents. So consider joining us in the Patreon community, and you're going to get to receive all the extra content, some great bonuses that we've got just exclusively for you. So we've got links for you in the show notes to check that out. All right. So your assignment for this week is just to try to perform one inoculation. Think about a value that you want to instill in your kids that you know is being challenged by the other home or the culture or the friendships, and decide how are you going to use a powerful true story to illustrate that value and help it come alive for your kids. So that's your challenge for the week.
That's a good one.
Yeah. All right. Well, that makes this episode a wrap.
Until next time.